Welcome. Today we talk about the Sistine Chapel, and in particular this famous fresco, The Creation of Adam by Michelangelo. I know you have seen it, but do you know the story about it? Michelangelo was a famous Italian sculptor, painter, architect, and poet of the High Renaissance. In this previous video we talked about his most famous sculpture, David. In 1508, Pope Julius II asked Michelangelo to paint the relatively unimportant ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. The chapel had great symbolic meaning for the papacy, and it was used for great ceremonies such as electing and inaugurating new popes. It already contained distinguished wall paintings by masters such as Sandro Botticelli and Pietro Perugino, but Michelangelo would outshine them all with his ambition and technical skill, producing one of the defining works of Western art of any century. He would then come back many years later, when he was 60 years old, to paint the altar wall with his Last Judgment. Originally, the Pope asked Michelangelo to paint the ceiling with a geometric ornament, and place the 12 apostles in spandrels around the decoration. Michelangelo, however, soon scrapped these plans and went for something much more ambitious, entirely covering a huge ceiling with an area of nearly 800 square meters. He decided to paint the Old Testament scenes, divided by the fictive architecture that he uses to organize the composition. Over the next 4 years, the master would work largely alone and very often in an uncomfortable position, on top of a scaffolding he himself had designed to create these frescoes. While the work was ongoing, the artist would let no one see its progress, not even the Pope, who was impatient to see the job finished. Michelangelo used the technique of contrasting colors next to each other, which makes them look brighter, and creates a shadow effect. He also used foreshortening and perspective techniques, fully aware that the intended audience for his work would be looking at the scenes from far below. He was mainly a sculptor and painting was not his primary area. We can see, in fact, that his figures come across as works of sculpture, with elegant and undulating muscles. They resemble the ideal Roman and Greek figures. Along the sides of the ceiling are 7 prophets and 5 sibyls, which alternate. Also around the edges, above the windows in the semicircular lunettes, are depictions of the traditional ancestors of Christ. The 4 larger corner panels contain scenes from the Bible. In the center there are 9 main panels running the length of the ceiling. They show a cycle of episodes from the Bible's book of Genesis, narrating the creation and 3 stories of Noah. The central vision of God amongst the clouds reaching out to touch the finger of Adam has become one of the most reproduced images of all time. God, on the right, is shown inside a floating nebulous form made up of drapery and other figures. The form is supported on angels who fly without wings. God is depicted as an elderly, yet muscular man with grey hair and a long beard, and he wears only a light tunic which leaves much of his arms and legs exposed. Adam is depicted as a lounging figure who seems to be waking up as God touches him. This touch will not only give life to Adam, but to all mankind. It is, therefore, the birth of the human race. There is an intense connection between them, and we can easily feel the power of God's touch. Adam's body forms a concave shape which echoes the form of God's body, and this seems to reflect the idea that man has been created in the image and likeness of God. You might have noticed that their hands do not meet. The space between the 2 fingers is a little under an inch, but this gap makes the entire picture worth a second and a third look. This one detail is the entire reason this painting is famous, and no one really knows why Michelangelo chose to paint the hands in that way. Despite this, we can still feel the power, the strength, and the life transferring from God to Adam. The shape of the drapery and angels surrounding God resembles that of a human brain. This has led to the conclusion that God purposely kept intelligence from Adam, especially the knowledge of good and evil. It was only after Adam had sinned that God came to allow him this awareness. This fresco teaches us that God did not just create man, he forged a relationship with man. The real beauty of the creation of Adam is not that it will forever be a timeless masterpiece, it is that this piece relates to each and every single person on the face of this earth. It is the start of all of us, no matter the differences. There is something about looking at it that cannot be captured in words, and it will always be one of the great jewels of Western art. So, do you like this fresco? Leave a comment.